Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, you're joining us as we get into a real giant of aviation history, the F-4 Phantom II.
Oh yeah, the Phantom, an absolute icon.
Definitely. And if you're looking to, get up to speed quickly on this jet, we've pulled together some great material.
We've got stuff on its history, the different versions.
All the variants, yeah, and that groundbreaking radar tech it had. Plus, where they are now, like in museums.
Right. So the plan is trace it from the beginning, look at, well, maybe not specific battles in detail from these sources, but its overall impact.
And point you to where you can actually go see one.
Exactly. It's more than just an aircraft. It represents a whole era, really. Hugely important in several conflicts.
Even if the sources don't list, like, battle by battle.
Correct. But its reputation, what Airspeed Junkie calls its legendary status, and just how long it served, it tells you it was right in the thick of things.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning then. McDonnell Douglas.
Yeah.
That's where it was born, right? Before they became part of Boeing.
That's the one. And that Airspeed Junkie piece really captures that legendary feel from the get-go.
Our sources don't spell out the exact initial design goal, like build a plane that does X, but you can tell it was meant to be, well, pretty capable.
Absolutely. And what's really amazing is how adaptable that core design turned out to be.
You mean all the different versions?
Yeah, I mean, just look at that Wikipedia list of F-4 Phantom variants. It's huge.
It really is.
It just shows how they kept tweaking it, modifying it for all sorts of different jobs. And those asterisks showing conversions from older models, that really drives home how it was constantly evolving, throughout its service life.
That list definitely paints a picture of versatility.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The radar. That seems key to why it was so effective.
Oh, massively important. We looked at that Phantom familiarization guide from Fly and Wire, and it gives some really cool insights.
What stood out?
Well, one basic thing was how clearly they separated the ranges on the selector. You had your air intercept ranges, AI, 5 to 50 nautical miles, basically for dogfighting or engaging other planes.
All right.
And then you had the much longer search and mapping ranges going out to 100, even 200 miles.
For finding things further out or looking at the ground?
Exactly. And apparently a light even came on in the cockpit to tell you when you were in an AI mode. Simple, but effective UI.
Okay. And what about this mover switch? Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's like they were trying to tailor the radar's performance to the situation. Low G for, say, flying straight and level, or when dealing with ground clutter, maybe even countermeasures.
And high G.
That was for the intense stuff, air-to-air combat, high G turns. And apparently it would automatically switch to high G if the CAA system was engaged.
CAA, Continuous Airspace Arbitration.
Right. Shows a level of integration there, thinking about how pilots would actually fight.
Makes sense. And the scan switch. Selecting scan bars.
Yeah, 1 or 2 vertical bars, different from, say, the AWG-9 radar in the F-14, which used more. But this was a different approach. Maybe a trade-off between how fast it scanned and how often it updated the target's position.
Okay, and here's where that real-world feedback comes in, right?
Yeah.
From Fly and Wire mentioning the 10% true community.
Exactly. Apparently, pilots often preferred the 1-bar setting.
Why was that?
It seems the 2-bar mode could sometimes give, intermittent hits, not a solid track.
So maybe not ideal if you really need to lock onto something.
Precisely. In a fight, you probably want that solid, continuous lock, even if it means scanning a slightly smaller vertical slice. Less confusing, maybe.
Yeah, managing information overload.
And it fits, because the 1-bar was apparently the automatic choice for air-to-ground or mapping modes anyway. Plus, they had manual control over the antenna elevation, too. Lots of fine-tuning possible.
Okay, and then the display knob. That controlled the view.
Yeah, perspective and how wide the scan was. B-scope mode had a wide 120-degree sweep, good for situational awareness, and a narrow 45-degree one for focusing in.
And PPI.
Plan position indicator. That's the top-down map view. Useful for ground mapping, and you could manually position narrow sweeps on it. Then there was Visident.
For visual identification, pure pursuit.
Right, though how it worked exactly varied a bit between Phantom upgrades. It just shows the range of tools the crew had.
It really does sound sophisticated. And what about that manual VC control knob? Sounds a bit old school.
It does, but it was pretty important for manual radar operation. You'd visually match the target blip's movement with the range strobe using this knob to set the closure rate.
Wow, that sounds tricky. Needs skill.
Definitely required a skilled WSO, yeah. You wonder when they'd use it, maybe heavy jamming, or against targets doing weird maneuvers the automatic systems couldn't handle.
Interesting possibilities. So, okay, this advanced radar, clearly a huge part of the Phantom's success. Now let's talk battles and conflicts.
Right. And as we said, the sources we have don't give us like detailed blow-by-blow accounts of specific F-4 engagements. But you look at its reputation, that legendary status again, and the fact it was a frontline U.S. fighter until, what, 1996?
Yeah, 96 for frontline squadrons.
You just know it was involved in major stuff. Vietnam, absolutely. Conflicts in the Middle East. It was designed for that Cold War environment and proved itself. You don't get called a legend by staying in the hangar.
Good point. Its reputation was definitely earned in action. Okay, so let's move towards the end of its service life and its legacy today. Where can people see them?
Well, the Vintage Aviation News piece talks about the final retirement from U.S. military service in 2016.
Although the QF-4 target drone program ended a bit earlier, 2013.
Right. Kind of sad to see them go, but the article does mention the hope that many of these planes, even the drones, would end up in museums.
Which is crucial for preserving that history.
Absolutely. And there's a concrete example. The Castle Air Museum restoring an F-4S, the Black Bunny.
Oh, cool. So you can actually go see a restored Phantom there.
Hopefully soon, yeah. That's a fantastic way to connect with the aircraft.
And the article also mentioned the Flying Leatherneck Museum reopening in Irvine.
It did, yeah. Another place where Phantoms might potentially be displayed, showing that commitment to preserving these machines.
It also notes a MiG-21 project landing at the Museum of Flight. Not a Phantom, obviously, but...
But it shows that wider context, right? Preserving the whole story of aviation, including the Phantom's contemporaries and rivals. Museums are just invaluable for that.
They really are. Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive on the F-4 Phantom II, we've gone from its McDonnell Douglas origins, touched on its likely involvement in major conflicts, which built that legendary status,
Dug into some specifics of that really advanced radar system.
and looked at how its legacy lives on in places like the Castle Air Museum.
It really was a remarkable aircraft. An engineering feat, incredibly adaptable, and its impact, especially with that radar tech, was huge over decades of service.
Couldn't agree more. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the F-4 Phantom II.
Hope you found it interesting.
Yeah, and if you did enjoy learning about this aviation legend and you want to help us do more deep dives like this one, please do like and subscribe to the channel.
Your support really does help, and hopefully this gives you a bit more appreciation for the Phantom.
Definitely. Until the next deep dive, thanks for listening.
Keep looking up.